رسول الله السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
The Lord of the worlds, we thank Him, we adore Him, we glorify His holy name for His mercy and blessing on us. We seek for His mercy and blessing on Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. May His peace and blessing continue to be upon His household, His companions, and all the Muslims to the day of Qiyamah. Our class continues today. We are still with the book Kitabu Tawhid. So yesterday we stopped on the points at-tawassul wal-istighatha, that is seeking nearness or closeness to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and seeking help with other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we mentioned that this is one of the areas where people fall into Bidiah. So and this Bidiah has to do with area of Tawhid. And when somebody falls into this type of Bidiah and it is done consciously, so the point or the meaning is that such a person is going to negate he or jinn. So in other words, going to fall into kufru. We actually explained the concept yesterday very well. We explained at-tawassul and istighatha yesterday, so that there are actually permissible ways you can do tawassul, and there are impermissible ways. There are ways that are permissible by the Sharia of Islam, and there are some that are not permissible. When we say istighatha is actually to seek help by other than Allah, especially seeking help during the time of difficulty. So like Allah mentioned in the Quran, in Surah Al-Fawzan, Allah says, "Why is it tastakisuna rabbakum fastajaba lakum?" So, and also Allah talked about the story of Prophet Musa and Surah Al-Qasas. Allah says, "Fastaghathahu alladhi min shihatihi ala alladhi min aduwwi." So here it means when you seek help from someone at the point of danger, at the point of difficulty. So we have some people that argue or that claim that there is nothing wrong in seeking help, and seeking help from other, there is nothing wrong in it, and it doesn't actually affect somebody's iman. And the point in the Sharia is that Sharia did not ask us not to actually make use of things that Allah created around us. So Allah actually created them for us to make use of them. But the point is that we can only do istighatha from somebody that is living. And if it's not from somebody that is living, if you attempt to do istighatha with the dead or with the spirit, then one will be committing shirk easily. And this is the point. This is the area where this point is being raised, because there are some people when they were in the point of danger. So when they are about to be destroyed or harmed or hurt in any way, so the only thing they will remember and call upon at that point is a creature of Allah, is a creation of Allah. So we have some people that we call on a prophet, some we call on a righteous servant of Allah, some we even call on jinn, some we even call on dead at the point of danger. So this point of Bidiah is actually a great one, it's a dangerous one. So it's very similar to that of tawassul, they are very related. So the little difference, like I've just mentioned, is that istighatha is done at a point when one is in a danger. So that kind of help you seek or you sought at that time. So that is what is referred to as istighatha. And like we mentioned about tawassul yesterday, that they are actually permissible. Even istighatha, like we mentioned some example in the Quran now, you can do istighatha with somebody that is living, provided the person has ability to render the assistance you actually sought from him or you seek from him. So if somebody does not have that ability or power, then seeking istighatha or help from such a person means you believe a miracle can be done. So the only person that can do such miracle or that can give help, that can render help in that situation is what? Is Allah. So the example that is given in Surah Al-Qasas about Prophet Musa, it was a living that is seeking help from a living. And even in that case, your tawakkul will be in Allah. So you make use of what you see, a sabab Allah has given you. So but your tawakkul, you put your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in other words, when something is feasible and is affordable and is feasible, so there's nothing wrong in seeking help or using it as a means of getting out of one's problem. This is permissible. So just like the case of tawassul, like we mentioned yesterday. And the next one that is mentioned here is the point of al-mithaq. So this is another area where people fall into error and people deviate from the right path. Al-mithaq that is being mentioned here specifically because the mithaq actually means covenant or agreement that we took with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala at different points. So but the one that is being referred to here specifically is the mithaq of Alastu bi rabbikum. That is, there's a verse in Surah Al-A'raf that is being nicknamed the verse of Alastu. So the verse where Allah was saying, وَإِذْ أَخَذَ اللَّهُ مِنْ بَنِي آدَمَ مِنْ ظُهُورِهِمْ ذُرِّيَّتَهُمْ وَأَشْهَدَهُمْ عَلَىٰ أَنفُسِهِمْ أَلَسْتُ بِرَبِّكُمْ قَالُوا بَلَىٰ. So that there was a point in time that Allah extracted from the children of Adam their descendants. Allah extracted from their growing their descendants. Then Allah made them to testify on their own self, against their own self. Allah asked them, am I not your Lord that you'll be worshipping? Qalu bala. They say, yes, you are our Lord, and we will be worshipping you. So this is a covenant that we all took with Allah. But some people actually argue that this meaning is not direct, or the meaning is not literal. So they said the meaning here is actually allegorical or is metaphorical. They said the mithaq that is being referred to here specifically is the mithaq of fitrah. That is the innate nature Allah has created us. That by nature we understand that it is Allah that created us and we worship Him naturally. So of course fitrah is there, like Allah has mentioned. Also Prophet Sallallahu also mentioned that He has created on a fitrah that we recognize Allah by our nature and we worship Allah by our nature. This is actually valid. But the Quran also established that there is a point in time that Allah extracted, and this is mentioned literally, and the meaning is not confusing anyway. Some people even argue that they cannot remember that event. Of course, you don't need to remember, but the event happened, and it happened at a time when we were not existing. So we were only extracted from the growing. Everybody that is going to be made to come into existence. So they were extracted and they were made to testify against their own self. So the argument here is actually an attempt to do Tawhid, like we mentioned about the verse in the Quran when Allah was saying, for those people who have Iman and Ilmu, those who are well established in Ilmu, they don't attempt to do Tawhid of the Mutashabihat of the Quran. But for those people who have Zayd, who have element of deviation in their heart, who have element of Shirk, or who have element of Bidiah innovation, so they tend to give Tawhid, they tend to do Tawhid of the verse of Allah. So the same thing here. So when you say this verse is metaphorical, in other words, you say it is not direct, what you are doing is not more than Tawhid. But the Aqidah and the belief system of the Ahl-Sunnah wal Jama'ah is that. So this type of verses and the ones that are related to it, especially the one that has to do with the attributes and names of Allah, like we have mentioned previously, is that we believe it literally the way it has been mentioned. And we don't attempt to give it metaphorical meaning or to do Tawhid or to give it a secondary or meaning that is far from the literal meaning. We don't attempt to do that. Before, if we attempt to do that, it will actually contradict the words, the principle that there are some verses in the Quran that are mutashabihat. So for the mutashabihat, what is expected of us is to say what? Amanna. Like Allah said, فَأَمَّا الَّذِينَ فِي قُلُوبِهِمْ زَيْغٌ فَيَتَّبِعُونَ مَا تَشَابَهَ مِنْهُ. So they will be making attempts and efforts about the mutashabihat of the Quran. يَتَّبِعُونَ مَا تَشَابَهَ مِنْهُ. To go what? It's not what will go Tawhid. They be attempting to do Tawhid. In other words, to change the meaning or to give the meaning metaphorical meaning. But what is expected of us in this area or this kind of verse is that Allah said it, Prophet said it, then we believe, and we believe it literally. But how and when, if Allah did not tell us, we don't need to care about it. We just believe that Allah make it to happen. And one other thing is that we should believe that for Allah, there is no limit to what He can do. Himself is unlimited. There is no limit to His knowledge. So even when we don't understand something, we don't doubt the fact that it happened as long as we have seen a verse that supports it in the Quran and Hadith. Like we have mentioned some of our discussion in the past. So the verse of the mithaq is actually valid, and what is expected of us to believe it literally the way it has been presented in the Quran, not to attempt to give it what? Metaphorical meaning. Then the next one is at-tashbih muqabilu at-ta'til. So another area where people fall into Bidiah is the area of tashbih. So tashbih, and even when you try to give metaphorical meaning, or when you try to give the sifat of Allah metaphorical meaning, what you are doing here will be similar to what you are about to say here. That you will be likening Allah to His creature. Because tashbih is that you are giving Allah the quality or property of what He creates. So and Allah is outside His creation. Nothing resembles Him and does not resemble anything. He says, "Laysa kamithlihi shay'un wa huwa as-sami'ul basir." He said, there's nothing that resembles Him. There's nothing like Him. And He's all hearing and all seeing. Lam yalid wa lam yulad. He was not born and he did not give birth to anything. So how can you compare Allah that He does not give birth to? In other words, He does not have beginning and He does not have an end. He said, "Wal awwalu wal akhir wal zahir wal batin." So He's the beginning and He's the end. There is no beginning for Him and there will be no end for Him. How can you possibly understand such a being if not what He tells you about Himself? That's one. Another point is that we have all said it in some of our explanation in the past that Allah does not have beginning. Allah does not have limits. Everything about Him does not have limits. No limit to it. If it is His nature, His true nature, no limit to it. And if that, then we ask you, what is the evidence for that statement? Either from Quran or Hadith. If you don't have evidence for it, it means that verse or that your statement is what? It is Tawhid. It is Tawhid. It cannot be more than that. And how do we fall into this mistake? How do we find ourselves in this mess? We have also discussed this one in some of our explanation in the past that the way this thing started was when this idea of al-mantiq or al-kalam, when it started to emerge among the Muslims. So that is the logic, that is the philosophy, that is the reasoning. You see, Allah, the way Allah created us, our nature, our creation is such that we learn from experience and we understand things. We understand what we don't know from what we know, and that is what we call experience. We learn with pattern. So when we see cloud or we see dark cloud or sky, we believe that it will soon be what? It's raining, isn't it? Though it may not happen, but that is the expectation. So the same thing every other thing. In fact, that is the reason why Allah created every other thing. Allah wants us to understand. But there is limit to using what we see to understand what we don't see. There is limit to it. So the limitation is that it will be limited to this world and what Allah created for us to see. Created for us. But with regard to Allah Himself, we cannot use what we see to know the reality of Allah. So Allah actually only wants us to use what we see to know the extent of His power, or to know the extent of His what? His knowledge, but not to know the what? His real being, or not to be able to describe His what? His quality, except the way He described it. And even the extent to which we understand it, wallahi, it cannot be the real extent. Like one hadith of Prophet, anything that crosses your heart about Allah, Allah is opposite of that thing. So now, if we have to assess or to evaluate the extent of the mighty or the sublimity of Allah or the greatness of Allah, no amount of your brain cannot even contain it. It's beyond what your brain can contain. That's why Allah described some people when they were saying, those people are even limiting Allah. So Allah said, وَمَا قَدَّرُ اللَّهَ حَقَّ قَدْرِهِ وَالْأَرْضُ جَمِيعًا قَبِضَتْهُ يَوْمَ الْقِيَامَةِ وَالسَّمَاوَاتُ مَطْوِيَّاتٌ. So they did not give Allah His real, they did not assess Allah, they did not give His real, they did not evaluate Him correctly. In other words, they were assessing Allah below His true nature. And the only way and the only time you will fall into that mistake is when you are trying to describe Allah using what you have seen. If you say, okay, Yadullah, it means equal to Lord. Or another mistake is that when you did Yadullah, if you started to imagining your hand or other hand of thing you have seen. When they say Yadullah, don't even imagine, don't even compare. You know, with human being. When somebody tell you something, you understand? That is our nature. There's no gainsaying about that. You started to relate what you are being told with what you have known before. That is normal. And that is correct. Is that not so? And that is the same thing Allah is telling us. That inna fi khalqi samawati wal ard wa ikhtilafi al-layli wan nahar wal fulki allati tajri fil bahr, up to the end of the verse. At the end of that verse, Allah says, inna fi dhalika laayatin liqawmin ya'qilun, for people who can reason, who can think, who can make deduction, who are logical. Let's say there are signs. In other words, you use what is Allah saying in this thing, everything, there are signs for you. So the similar thing is mentioned at the end of Surah Al-Imran. So, but this reasoning or logic should only be limited to what is created. But for what is not created, the logic cannot actually get it. So when Allah says you should use what He has created to get some logic, and it can only be limited to what is created. But for what is not created, and that is even the logic that it cannot get it in the first place. The logic is that everything you are using are created. So you cannot use what is created to understand what is not created. They are not even related. You cannot use an ocean to compare an empty valley. You cannot understand. If you have been to a valley that is shallow or that is deep, and you think the way this valley that you have seen it is shallow, that is the same thing, this ocean will be shallow. You'll be what? You'll be destroyed. Because you are making wrong comparison. They are not even related in the first place. So you cannot use what is created to understand what is not what? That is not created. You cannot use what has limits to judge what does not have limits. You cannot use created being to judge or to understand the creator himself. No. And what does that tell us? Because some people may still argue. Then, how do we understand our Allah? He has told us what we need to know about Him. And like I said, we use what He created to understand what other things, isn't it? So he is asking us to use that to estimate the extent of His power. But I tell you again that even when you imagine the extent of power, you cannot get to the end of the extent of Allah's knowledge and power. You cannot. It's not possible. Because it does not even have end in the first place. If they say, okay, what is the extent of Allah's power? And you say, okay, looking at what He has created, I think His power can reach this. That is, you are actually doing what? You are violating the holiness of Allah. Because the power you are describing or you think can reach the extent does not even have limit in the first place. Allah, no limit. His knowledge, no limit. His power, no limit. Everything about Him, no limit. So, anytime you are trying to know the extent of His power, you are limiting Him. That, okay, this is extent. That is limit. You are putting limit. But it does not have what? Limit. It does not have limit. So, putting limit in what He created in Him will actually mean what? It will allow me that you are blaspheming. That is a blasphemy. So now when we say at-tashbih, all what you have been saying is exactly how people fall into it. Because nobody believes that Allah is human being or human being is Allah, except some group of people that believe a human being is what is God. And that is how Shaitan mislead them. But for majority of people, they know that Allah is Allah and human being is human being. But the mistake they are making is that they are trying to give to compare the attributes of human being or created being with that of the creator. And there can be no comparison between it. So if you look at every other thing that is created, if Allah says He has a yard, look at your yard, look at your own. You see the size. Let's even assume if somebody's hand is as big as the whole of this planet, it can still not be compared to that of Allah. We don't know it and we are not supposed to bother ourselves by that. But what we are saying is that Allah says He does not have limit. You cannot limit Him. So how can you not describe Him? So now some people say, what we resort to in that case is that we will believe that when Allah says Yadu, He's actually talking what? Metaphorically. It does not mean Yadu in the literal sense of it. So we say even you are doing Tawhid. So if you don't do Tawhid, you will do what? Tashbih. Those people who attempt to limit or to give a description, they will fall into what? Either Tashbih or Ta'til. But if you say no, I don't want to do Tashbih and Ta'til, I want to say that is not the meaning. The meaning is what? Is power. Then you'll be falling to another mistake. And that is what? Tawhid. So then, what do? Allah has given us a solution. Amanna bihi kullu min. That's all. Allah has yadu, yes, amanna bihi. He has waju, yes, amanna bihi. He said it, we believe. He said he used to come to the first heaven at the last part of the night, the last third part of the night. Yes, we believe. Because he said it. But how he does it, we don't know. And we don't need to trouble ourselves with that. So all we do is that what? Amanna bihi kullu min indi rabbina. Everything is through the fact from Allah. And this thing is very simple and it's very easy to undo. Unlike when you attempt, because like the one description that anytime you attempt to understand, to try to understand Allah, so Shaitan will come and will assist you up to the point that you will get lost. Say, okay, it's like this, it's like that. How is it? That is why the ilmu of falsafa, the philosophy, is condemned. Because the falsafa we are talking about is the one that wants to use logic to understand Allah or to understand His attribute, Al-Mantiq. So, and we mentioned that actually started at the end of the 3rd century in Islamic history. Before then, nobody among the Sahaba, among the Tabi'un, Atba'u Tabi'in, none of them, we did not have any record, any message from them that they use what? They use Mantiq or Ilm Kalam. What they use is what? Tawhid. And the Tawhid is that Semina wa Akana. That's Tawhid. So the only thing we need is that just know that this message is from Allah. So now if Allah tells you the meaning or the logic or the hikmah or whatever, then you believe it. But if you are not told, do not bother yourself, because that is not what you need. What you need is what? How to get to Jannah. That should be the most important thing. What am I supposed to do so that I will earn what? The realm of Allah. So I've been admitted to where? To Jannah. And we, you know how smart Shaitan is. Shaitan will make us, it will keep us busy with things that will mislead us, and will make us to forget things that we what? That will lead us to success. So it will make us to what? To abandon ibadat. And of course we are supposed to be tafakkur and tadabbur. It's part of ibadah. And tafakkur and tadabbur are actually supposed to be done in the creation of Allah, so that it will lead you to Allah. But Shaitan will make your own tadabbur and tafakkur to be what? About Allah. No, Allah said don't bother yourself to do tafakkur about Allah, because you will not be able to get to the end of the story. Something, let's look at it this way. Let's say they say there is a path or there is a way, and that way, as much as you go, you will never get to the end of that road. They say you will never what? Get to the end of the road. So whether in terms of length or in terms of breadth, whether lengthwise or breadthwise, you will not get to the end. Now, what advantage will you get in examining how long it is and how wide it is? Okay, they said this road, no matter how you go, you will never get to the what? Now you are now thinking, let me think, how can it be, how long is it? What could be its length? Is that not a wasted effort? In the first place, you cannot go to the end. Whether lengthwise or the same thing Allah. You cannot understand its true nature because it does not have limits. It does not have description. It does not have similitude. Nothing resembling. It does not resemble anything. So now any attempt to reason and to think, if you think your thinking is logical to understanding, will be a wasted effort, and it will not only be wasted, it will land you in kufr. But what Allah wants us to do is to what? Is to think about what is great and understand His power and fear Him. Is to think about Quran and understand His rule and follow His instruction. Allah tells us about His power. He shows us one of His power that He made Prophet Muhammad to travel from Baitul Haram to Baitul Maqdis and from Baitul Maqdis to the 7th heaven in the part of the night. So Allah is actually telling us about His power there. That's why Allah says Subhanallah. But that does not show, that shows how great His power, isn't it? But that does not show that that's it. Allah's power does not have limit. Allah can do anything you can not even imagine. And if you don't understand what you are saying, look at this. Everything exists. The cosmos, the whole cosmos, if you can imagine and understand how wide it is or how massive they are. Allah said, when I intend to create it, the only thing it takes me to create it is what? Kun. That's all. It is just kun, and everything falls into its place. It's not more than that. So that kind of being, with that kind of power, with that kind of knowledge, you see, if somebody wants to create something, it will take you a long time to prepare, to think. After you have think and you prepare, then you gather material you want to use. Allah does not need to gather material. Even the material, kun fayakun. Even what He wants to create, kun fayakun. And there's no difference in when Allah intends to create atom and when you want to create cosmos. You know, when you want to create something small, the effort and time you spend will be less than when you want to create something bigger than that. You spend more time here, and less time here. And you do more mental exercise, less here, you do more here. Isn't it? But for Allah, there's no difference. The same cone He will use for this is the same cone He will use. There's no difference. And everything will be with immediate effect. So that kind of being, we don't actually try to limit His nature, His attribute, or we don't actually give His attributes any description that have ever come to our mind. It will never be that of Allah. It's very simple. Because some argument of people is that, or some of the theory and the philosophy and the ideology Shaitan has bring is the ideology of what? Sin is believing. That is the materialism. That when you see something you believe. But like we mentioned in some of our that statement is hypocritical. That statement that sin is believing, you only believe what you see, is hypocritical. Because it is not everything you have to see before you believe. So you believe something because you have seen something similar to it before. Or you believe something because you have seen sign. For example, let's say we see feces of cow or droppings of chicken outside there. Do you need anybody to tell you that there was a chicken here, even if you did not see that chicken? Do you need anybody to tell you that a chicken was here before? Do you need anybody? Now, you didn't need anybody. Did you see chicken there? Then why do you believe? You have seen the sign. You have seen the sign that chicken was there. So now, why don't you say sin is believing? I must see chicken before I believe. Why didn't you say, I must see what? Chicken here before I believe chicken was here? When you see the sign, you believe. And the same thing, Allah. He said the whole of this creation, they were what? Alamun. They were signs that you know that I exist. They are signs that you know that I'm powerful. They are signs that you know that I'm knowledgeable. They are signs that you know that there's no limit to what I can do. If I give you an example of what I can do, that does not mean that is the limit. In fact, no limit. And when I say no limit, it's not that I'm struggling to do that. It's not about struggle. It's just its nature. And like we said, anything is just come. That's all. Everything will be. So, at-tashbih is actually when we do what is called anthropomorphism. That is, we liken Allah's attribute to that of His creature, or we liken the creature of Allah to what? To Allah Himself. So, and they can never be the same. They don't resemble. We have never seen that of Allah. So we don't know how Allah is. We only believe what He told us about Himself. And that is the reality. Even there are some of the creatures of Allah that when we are told about them, so it sounds unbelievable because of the size or because of the behavior or because of the quality. That is just the creature. What about the creator? So the other time we described the Arsh and the Kursi of Allah. So can you imagine the size? It's not imaginable. It's beyond our imagination, our comprehension. That's just the creation of Allah. And Allah, do you know the one thing about Allah is that anything you know, what you know from that thing is just like a fraction of the whole knowledge, no matter how wide your knowledge about that thing is. Allah says, وَلَا يُحِيطُونَ بِشَيْءٍ مِنْ عِلْمِهِ. That is the only thing Allah wants you to know, and that does not mean that is the end. You know, in those days, science, they said atom is the smallest particle of an element, isn't it? But later they say no, even atom is divisible. So we don't know what they will say today. But whether they say another thing or they didn't say another thing, that thing you think is the end, that is never the end. Because you can never get to the end of the knowledge of Allah. There can be no end to what Allah has taught you about something. There will always be what? Far more than what you don't know about what you know about that same thing. So at-ta'til is when you attempt to negate the property of Allah. So the negation of property of Allah actually happens in different ways. One of the ways it happens is that there are some people like the Mu'tazila, they said Allah does not become Khaliq until after He creates. You have actually negated that quality, or you negate the time that it's not originally part of Allah. Or when you liken it, even when you do tashbih, it can also lead to what? Ta'til. It's like you are removing the original quality of Allah, or you are negating it the way it is, or the true nature of the quality. Or when you believe that Allah does not know something will happen until when it happens. So you are negating the quality of what? Ilm from Allah. And his ilm is what? Is azali, just like himself. No beginning, no end. Nothing, you cannot contain it. Even some of his creation, nobody can contain it except him. So you can imagine the population of mankind from the beginning of world to the end. On the day of Qiyamah, the Jahannam, when they were filled up, the Jahannam will not be filled with the population of people. Allah will ask it, Alim Talat. So when Allah places his feet on it, it will say, it's enough, it's enough, it's enough. And that is to tell you that nothing can contain Allah and nothing can limit Allah. Himself is unlimited. Everything he created is what? Is limited. So we don't do ta'atil and we don't do tashbih. The another thing is that at the Ismatul Anbiya, that is infallibility of the prophets. So this is actually reality and it is supported by Quran and Hadith. Though there are some people that argue that the Isma, that is infallibility of the prophet, is limited. So, and there are people that go to extreme in two ways. Some people go to extreme about their infallibility, that as a human being, they cannot make mistake at all. No. They cannot make mistake in the area of Sharia and the area of what deen. But as a human being, they can get mistake. They can get mistake. Like that, even Prophet, when some incident, like Abdul ibn Abdul, so when he came to Prophet frowned and turned away from him, then Allah came and corrected him. So, and some other instances, and like we know the case of Prophet Yunus. So, but they were actually invaluable. They cannot afford to sin. They don't commit sin. And that inability to commit sin is actually a divine protection. And why is that necessary? Imagine a prophet can easily, they are human beings. So imagine they can fall into sin. Even when they don't fall into sin and they don't commit sin, see the way people condemn them. See the way people reject them. See with the way people insult them and reject their message. And some people even look for excuses when those excuses are not valid. Now let's assume the excuse is even there. What do you think will happen? Even somebody who is not a prophet, maybe somebody that represents Islam or a deen or an ambassador, when he falls into error, his own condemnation or his own the way people will condemn him will be more than somebody who does not represent the deen. The meaning is that they believe that you represent the deen, then you shouldn't have made this kind of mistake. What about if it is a prophet or messenger that made that mistake in the first place? What do you think? So now Allah has to protect them. They have to be protected from committing sin. So they don't sin. They don't commit sin. No, they don't commit sin. But as a human being, they can make mistakes. But to commit sin, no, they don't do that. Let alone in the Sharia or in the what? In the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They don't make that mistake. So, but there are some people that believe that they are superhuman. Some people believe that they are not even human. And some are actually sincere about their claim. Like the day Prophet Muhammad, when he died, Umar said, anybody that said Prophet have died, I will cut down his head. Because he never imagined that Prophet can die. Until when Abu Bakr came, he said, Wama Muhammadun ila Rasulun qad khalat min qablihi afa in mata aw qutila. So when he had that fast, as if he has never had it before, he calmed down. So there are some people that believe that they are not human beings. But of course they are human beings, but they are protected. Even the verse of Quran says that. Innama ana basharun mislukum yuha ilayhi. I'm also a woman. I'm born of a woman and a woman being. But there is difference between me and you. One of the differences is that I receive why? I receive inspiration from Allah. Allah inspired me. So our belief about this one is that they actually have isma, they are invaluable, and they are being protected from sinning. They don't commit sin and they don't misbehave the way every other woman can misbehave. But the fact is still that they are still what? They are still human. And some also go to the extent to say that they are not what? They are not infallible. That is not correct. So the Quran and the Hadith, they establish the truth that they are what? They are invaluable. Allah protect them. And when they say they are invaluable, it means Allah divinely protect them. And we have just said the logic behind it now. Because of the message they carry. The message is what? It's a sublime message from Allah. So Allah sent a message and a book to a messenger, and you expect that messenger to be committing mistake, error? No, it will not be proper. So they have to be divinely protected. They have to be divinely what? Guided. So their speech, their actions, they are guided. They don't misbehave. They don't talk out of necessity. They don't do what is not necessary. They are not attached to this world. So anytime, anywhere there's a prophet or messenger on the earth's surface, they will possess the quality of human being to the highest level you can imagine. There will be nobody who can supersede them. If it is about character, any prophet will be who has what? The best character at his time. If it is ability to speak, they will be able to speak better than anybody. One day during the time of Prophet Musa addressed the Banu Israel, and the speech was so powerful that all of them, despite their stubbornness, they were moved by the speech of Prophet Musa. It got to a point that they could not hold it. One of them asked, Prophet Musa, is there anybody who is more knowledgeable than you? Because they imagined the level and the depth of the speech. Musa said no. So the same thing, character, the same thing, even beauty. When you have a prophet or messenger, at that time, if they ask us who is the most beauty among prophets, our mind, our heart will go to what? Prophet Yusuf. But let me tell you that it's just his own case, and exactly the way it happened that make his own case. But all the prophets of Allah, they are the most beautiful of their time. And anybody that come after them, even during their time, cannot be as beautiful as they are. When the beauty of Prophet Muhammad was being described by Babat, when she described it, so you will still be imagining that, is there anybody who can still be more beautiful than Prophet Muhammad? That's how Allah created him. So anything, just imagine, even with his power, strength to do things, nobody can do it more than them. When the power of Prophet Musa was being described, so when he moved from Egypt, out of fear and running away from being armed to Madian, when he reached the Mahul Madian, like Quran described it, they said they normally cover the well with a stone, and the stone is so big that they need about 10 people to carry it. So when Prophet Musa was going to carry it, he carried it all alone. From there, some people say Prophet Musa had power of 10 persons. But I said that is a mistake. That is a what? The reason why what they are doing here is that since he carry only him carry what 10 persons carry, they believe his power is equal to that of what? But that is a mistake. The mistake is that you don't limit his power to that of 10 people. Just because you have seen that he carry what 10 persons can carry does not mean even his power is limited to that. That does not mean. Just like somebody was also saying that what is happening now, since Prophet is not living now, Prophet doesn't know it. We have to be very careful about this one. You don't claim that he has knowledge of one thing except the one Allah taught him. But what the person is saying, for example, that some things happen, and since Prophet was not living about that time, or at that time, he may not know it. So that should be the assumption. But one other thing is that there are some things that Prophet Allah taught prophets that he does not necessarily tell us because it is for him. The levels of knowledge of prophets are high and higher than us. One day, Prophet he mounts one of the mountains in Mecca, and he called people. He said, and when he was on the top of the mountain, he can see everywhere, and those people are below him. He said, if I tell you some people are coming from your back, they are about to attack you, will you disbelieve? They say no. Because you can see what is coming behind them, and they cannot see. He said, that is the example of prophet and messenger of Allah among you. He knows. It's just like somebody on the mountain can see everywhere. You don't see anything. So he knows what you don't know. He sees many things. That's the meaning of knowledge. That's the example of knowledge that I gave you. There was a day somebody asked Prophet Muhammad about something. The Prophet said, if not because you asked me, I would not have told you. Which means that knowledge is meant for him, his own personal consumption. Because if it is not meant for him, Prophet will not mention that statement. because he is sent in the first place as a what? As a teacher to teach the knowledge. So if he now say I will not, it means that thing is meant for him in the first place. And of course, when he went to Isra'ul Miraj, he described many things. Can you tell me the decision you are given is the same thing as the way you see it? The understanding you have when you see something, can it be the same as when you are told about it? So now can you judge his knowledge about that thing with the information you have? No, you cannot. So that's one thing. Another thing is that there's one hadith of Prophet. He said Allah has told him, or Allah has shown him the deed of his ummah up to the end of his ummah. Allah has shown him. Allah has revealed to him. So which means Allah has already told him. So you cannot now say because he's normal living, Allah has not. No, Allah has already told him. So you don't restrict. And all these ones are just what their properties and their quality and their benevolence of Allah on them. And because of their position. And because of the level. And because of their righteousness also. So now, what we are supposed to believe about them is that we limit ourselves to what Allah has told us about them, and we don't attempt to deify them. We don't attempt to what? To deify them. You know, Shaitan, he take opportunity of our two extreme, whether something is sub or whether something is what beyond the limit. When you love something beyond limit, Shaitan will take opportunity of that. If you hate somebody beyond limit, Shaitan will take example. If you are angry beyond limit, Shaitan will take that advantage. If you are fearful beyond limit, Shaitan will take advantage. If you are happy beyond limit, Shaitan will take advantage of that. So now, the fact that somebody did not have father, and Shaitan take that opportunity and to mislead some people that is a son of Allah. And you see how Shaitan started. Like that is always his method. When you want to mislead Adam, he did not start. Like Allah said, Allahumma, he started slow, but what do you call gradually. He did it gradually. It takes a very long time. He is very patient. He knows that if it comes all of a sudden, you may reject it. So he now is taking one step at the other until he gets to the end of it. So Shaitan wants them to liken a woman being to Allah. They want them to call woman being Allah, but he did not start from there. Initially, he started from where? Son of Allah. So nobody had a problem with it. The later said, no, it's Allah himself. It's Allah that turned himself to him. And is it possible for a woman being to be Allah? We have just described Allah now, that it does not have limits. How can it be contained inside this planet? This is the smallest planet. So we are talking about galaxy, we are talking about cosmos, we are talking about levels of 7 heaven. Everything we are talking about is just in this heaven. We are talking about Arshu and Kursi of Allah. And you are saying somebody, a human being, for that matter. So we don't go to that extreme also to liken them to what Allah or take them out of human being. They are still human being. Inni anna basharu mislukum. So even Prophet said, he said, anna basharu mislukum ansa kama tansawna. I forget the way you ought, you also forget. Faisan nasitu fadhakiruni. When I forget, remind me. I'm a human being. So I've been notified that our time is up. Inshallah, we'll stop on this note and continue from there next week. May Allah make it easy for us. Subhanakallahumma bihamdi. Ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi.
Let's say Jazakumullah khair. We ask Allah Ta'ala to reward our servant abundantly and preserve him from goodness. And we ask Allah Ta'ala to grant us better understanding of our deen. If there's any question.
For example, now I want to marry one girl. So her family, they are not in support of that marriage. So and that girl, she was in love with me. Can I go with her? Or...
Well, the hadith of Prophet, he said, "Idha atakum ma tardawna dinahu wa khulquhu fasawwiju." When somebody that you are satisfied by his religion and his character approach you for your daughter to seek for her hand in marriage, then you should allow her to go. Because what matters most is the religion and character. Even Prophet says, so he mentioned up to there, he said, first part is that. So you should look at religion so that you will not be a lost illusion. So if their reason for rejecting or for disapproving the marriage, if it is based on religion or character, it is valid. So the daughter just have to respect their faith. Because Allah that said we should marry them with the permission of their wali. So just to respect them. You can imagine somebody has been raising somebody for several years. You just come from nowhere all of a sudden. If not the nature Allah keep in us, and you started to prefer that person over somebody who has been raising you for years. You can imagine. But because of the love, and Shaitan can make that love to be intoxicating sometimes. That you love somebody up to that, you even forget who you are not supposed to forget. You understand? But if their reason is worldly reason, or their reason is not religious, or it does not relate to religion, then we will not allow it to happen. You understand? For example, somebody gave me an example that somebody wants to marry a lady, and he went to the house of the parents. I'm here. But when he gets there, they are actually of Yoruba origin, but they don't live in Yoruba land. But they want people to behave. You understand? So when the man gets here, he did not prostrate. And why did he prostrate? That is what he understands, that is the sunnah, that we don't prostrate. So now the family, they see it as the act of what? Disrespect. Arrogance or disrespect, that you want to marry our daughter and you cannot prostrate for us. Who are you, by the way? And like you said, the lady is also in love with the man. And they understand that their reason is not valid. And it's even against what Allah wants. So they say, no, we must marry whether you like it or not. So the lady now go to Sharia court. That I have an husband I want to marry. And my parents don't have any problem with him in terms of religion. So the only problem that he did not what? They invited them, they say, yes, he disrespects us. He should keep prostrate for us. The court, when they insist, the court married the two of them. Because there is no law that supports what they are saying. So because of that, they now become enemy to those new couple, to their daughter and their son-in-law. But those people, the two of them, they did not stop to continue to be what? To be good to them. Even though they rejected them. So, and that is one of the teachings of Islam. They continue to what? To do their goodness to them. So it reached a point that their heart was softened, and they make comment themselves that they have many son-in-law, but this is the best of the son-in-law. The same person they rejected, they are still what? Commending. So you can understand. So now what matters most is actually what? Is to look at, to understand the deen and to see what the deen wants and to do it according to the sunnah of Allah. Now, if you say because somebody does not prostrate, and that is what that girl also understands, that somebody I want to marry should not be somebody who is prostrate. The meaning is that you don't want her to marry, or you want to force her to marry somebody who will be lesser or substandard. That's the meaning. So which means that shouldn't happen in the first place. Allah Ta'ala.
No more question. Now, inshallah, we'll stop here for today and continue next week. Still urge our brother to be punctual, please, and also invite our other brothers. No matter accept it as an act of ibadah, of forgive our shortcuts. Assalamu alaikum.